In this video, I'm going to talk about multi-tenant architecture. This video is going to be purely language agnostic or framework agnostic. After this video, I will be making use of a Spring Boot to explain all the concept, like how we can implement this multi-tenant architecture. If you want in some other language, let me know in the comments and I can make use of that particular language or framework to explain this concept. Before starting with multi-tenant architecture, we will talk about normal applications. Let's say you developed one school application and you deployed it on a server. So what you have to do, you have to create instance of that particular application and then you have to configure it to db1. Again, you got a school 2. You did same operation. You have provision instance 2 and db2. This is a normal scenario where any application you will develop and deploy for that particular client. So let's say you got a school 3, you did same, a school 4, you did same. So here you are doing repeated operations. Like for a school 1, you have to provision one server, school 2, you have to provision one server. Same way, whenever new client is coming, you have to provision a new server. Okay. To overcome this, basically this multi-tenant architecture came into picture. What is multi-tenant architecture? Multi-tenant architecture is a software model where one application instance serves multiple tenants. Tenants means users or organization sharing a single infrastructure while ensuring their data and configuration are isolated and secure. Similar to an apartment building where residents share the same building but have private, distinct living spaces. This approach reduces cost through resource sharing, improves maintainability by allowing centralized updates, and simplifies onboarding new clients. Discuss about use case. Basically, any SaaS application. Uh, in previous example, we have seen like we have created a school management software. So that is software as a service. So where anywhere, like if you want to create one SaaS application, so we can make use of this multi-tenant architecture. Any platform as a service, that will also come under this thing only, multi-tenant. Infrastructure as a service or application where multiple clients is being used. So that is example of multi-tenant architecture. Why we need this architecture? First, it is cost efficient because resources are being shared among many tenants, leading to lower cost per user for the software provider and the tenants. Updates, security patches, and maintenance can be applied to a single instance, benefiting all the tenants simultaneously. So, simplified maintenance. Third is faster onboarding. Whenever new customers are coming, customers can be provisioned quickly because they are using pre-configured shared system. Then increased efficiency. Reduce infrastructure requirements are streamlined management, contribute to overall operational efficiency. Okay. So we will discuss about database strategies in multi-tenancy. So there are three main strategies. Partitions data. So in this approach, basically what we do, we create any table. Before creating any table, we have to create one DB. So let's say we have created one DB, a school softs. Here we have created one table, a student. Okay. Let's say we have column ID, first name, last name, and other attributes. Along with that, we will create one column that will be tenant ID or business id, anything like that, tenant id. So this will purely serve as a partition. Okay, so whatever table will be there, each table will be having this tenant id. So here basically what we are doing, we are passing tenant id as a discriminator, as we discuss here, like we are providing as a column. So what we have to do, each time whenever application is calling or doing any query, we have to make sure that that discriminator is being passed. Like we have to pass each time where and then tenant id. So in newer version of frameworks like Spring Boot and Hibernate provides uh, a way to handle this. We don't have to manually pass every time this where column. We can simply pass tenant id and it will take care of that. Then there is another approach, separate schema. Let's say in this approach what you have to do, you created one db school softs, but let's say school 1 got onboarded, so there will be school 1 or abc, whatever name is there, and then the table name will be there. So this will be the schema based approach. Here, like for each tenant you have to create one separate identical table, like we created here. Like a student table will be again created for school 1, for school 2 again I'll create a school 2 dot student. That can be handled by code itself, you don't have to manually create each time. But like here you will, if your application is not having complex logic and it is not a stricter in terms of data governance, then this is kind of tedious to manage. Here each table will be having separate each tenant will be having separate schema. Then next comes separate database. Here we are creating separate database for each tenant. In this approach basically we will be creating database as per tenant. Whenever new tenant is coming, we will be creating one database, and this is kind of very like secure way of making use of multi-tenant architecture, where based on connection it will connect to that particular tenant database, so no one can uh, alter any queries, but it requires multiple connection pools. In the other approach here, sorry, in the other approach in separate schema per tenant, here also we don't have to provide where column, it will directly query. So on connection level basically it can handle anything. So these two approaches are kind of being used in environment like healthcare domain or banking environment, where this data is kind of very stricter. If you are creating any MVP or any small application, in that case you can start with first approach, that is schema sorry partition one. So how you will identify tenant? So there are multiple way of identifying tenant. Like it is purely based on implementation. Most common way of identifying tenants are like, let's say you created your backend that is deployed on xyz server, but for every tenant, like either you will purchase one domain to give them custom look and feel, give them like their own white labeled website. So in that case you will follow website based approach. Otherwise you will give your domain xyz.com, and before that you will append their company name. Let's say I am working for any xyz company, so my company name is abc. So abc.xyz.com. Again school2 came, so what you can do, school2.xyz.com. So here first approach is subdomain based approach or domain based approach. So tenant will be derived from domain or subdomain. So basically, whenever you are doing white labeling for client, you can go with subdomain or domain based approach. Otherwise, you can go with HTTP header. In this approach, you will pass simply like header inside your postman. Let's say you are passing authorization. So here in authorization, you will be typically passing your bearer token or token. In the same nature, you have to pass your tenant ID or whatever you have configured, X tenant. So this will be passed as a header, and in that header basically you will pass your tenant name like ABC or school1, anything you have configured that will be passed. And during request you will intercept and get those values, like you get those values for authorization token, same way you will get values for tenant. And other way is derived approach. There basically based on login you will create like token, or you will just store tenant. But very common way is like, let's say first time request came, let's say first time request came, request 1 came. So we will check in that request whether this is kind of organization selected or not. So in first response we will pass payload with data, plus we will pass here like org id as a array. And here we will make use of one more in same JW2 token or whatever it is. There we will pass like org selected or not, and based on that it will give us one JWT token. And front end will handle same thing in subsequent request. Again we will make use of next request. There we will pass selected org id. So based on that it will give us corresponding JWT token or maybe plain payload. There org id will be simple school1, not a payload, and org selected will be true or something like that. We can design this system. Okay, so this is the very common way of implementing multi-tenant architecture in any application. So let me know in the comments if you want this implementation in any specific language. For now, I'll make use of a Spring Boot in the next application, and in the upcoming video, I'll make use of React to develop front-end application for this particular use case. Thank you.